the twin suns of the trade world of Ceres shone softly across the wide plains. Merchants set up their stalls, voices called out their prices, and the scent of spices drifted through the air. In this busy world, humans and aliens lived side by side, sharing goods and stories. Among them was a boy named Lien. Lien lived a simple life with his family, who ran a small shop selling tools and parts for travelers. He was not strong, nor was he wealthy, but he carried a curious heart. Each day, after helping his father arrange shelves, he would run through the markets, exploring new corners of the busy world. One day, his running brought him to someone new. She was different from the others, dressed in fine clothes, her eyes bright like polished stones. Her name was Myra. She was not from Ceres but from a distant star kingdom. Her family had come on an official visit, but Myra did not like being stuck inside the royal chambers. She had slipped away to see the world with her own eyes. When Lien first saw her, she was standing by a stall, looking at fruit she had never tasted before. She held one in her hand but did not know how to ask the seller for it. Lien noticed her hesitation and stepped forward. "You need to give him 2 coins, he said, pointing to the seller. Myra looked at him with surprise. "You speak so easily. I do not know these things." Lien smiled. "I live here. I can show you." And just like that, the two became friends. They walked together through the market that day, Myra asking questions about everything she saw: why humans built their houses from stone instead of crystal, why children shouted so loudly, why the air smelled of metal and dust. Lien answered as best as he could, though sometimes he made her laugh with his simple guesses. As the days passed, Myra returned again and again. Her guards tried to keep her close, but she always found ways to escape. She wanted to play, to run, to feel free. Lien was happy to join her. They raced through the tall grass outside the city walls, built small shelters from wood and stone, and lay on their backs counting the stars. For Myra, it was the first time she felt like an ordinary child. At home, she was always treated as a princess, someone who carried heavy duties. Here, with Lien, she was just Myra. She could laugh until her cheeks hurt, eat food with her hands, and shout without fear of being scolded. For Lien, it was a dream as well. He never thought he would be friends with someone so important. Yet Myra never looked down on him. She listened to his ideas, even silly ones, and she shared her own stories of faraway places he could not imagine. She spoke of crystal palaces floating above oceans, of trees that glowed at night, and of skies filled with ships shaped like birds. Lien listened with shining eyes, wishing one day to see them. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in gold and violet, Myra sat beside Lien on a rock near the fields. She picked up a small flower and held it in her hand. "Do you think friends can stay together forever?" she asked. Lien thought for a moment. He was still young, and forever was a hard word. But he nodded anyway. "Yes. Even if we are far apart, friends remember." Myra smiled softly and placed the flower in his hand. "Then remember me, if I go away." He closed his fingers around it. "And you remember me." Their friendship grew strong in those weeks. They learned each other's ways, their games, their laughter. They even made promises one day, when they were older, they would travel to the stars together. But stars are wide, and life does not always follow promises. The day came when Myra's family prepared to leave Ceres. Her people had duties, and her parents could not stay longer. Lien stood in the crowd, watching as the royal ship prepared to rise. He tried to be brave, but his chest felt heavy. Myra, standing near the ramp, looked out and saw him. She lifted her hand high, waving with all her strength. Lien waved back, clutching the small flower she had once given him. Then the ship rose into the sky, its engines glowing as it disappeared among the clouds. The sound faded, and silence filled the air. Lian stood there for a long time, staring upward. The sky looked empty now, though he knew she was out there somewhere. He whispered softly to himself, "Friends, remember." Years would pass. Lian would grow, and the galaxy would change in ways no one could predict. But in his heart, he carried the memory of a girl who was once not a princess, not a royal figure, but simply his friend under the twin suns of Ceres. And though Myra flew across the stars, ruling and learning in distant courts, deep inside her heart she too remembered a boy who once showed her how to buy fruit in a noisy market. The galaxy was vast and filled with countless worlds. Some were covered in oceans, some in forests, and some in endless stone. For centuries, the many kingdoms and empires had lived in uneasy peace, trading when they could and standing apart when they could not. But then came a danger none of them had expected. It began quietly, like a whisper. A small mining colony sent out a warning. Machines had awakened under the ground, machines no one had built. They rose in silence, taking apart the mining tools and rebuilding themselves into something stronger. By the time help arrived, the colony was gone. Only empty buildings remained, and the stars above felt colder. More reports followed. A station near the edge of the galaxy had vanished. A convoy of ships never returned. Slowly, fear spread. The leaders of great worlds gathered, but no one knew what these machines were or where they had come from. Some said they were old weapons left from a forgotten war. Others believed they were travelers from outside the galaxy. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: they were growing, feeding, and no world was safe. On her home planet of Vera, Princess Myra listened to these stories with a heavy heart. She had grown since the days of her childhood, when she had run freely on Ceres with her friend Lian. Now she was a young woman trained to carry responsibility. Her people looked to her for guidance. She wore fine robes, attended endless councils, and learned the art of calm speech even when fear pressed close. But inside, Myra still carried the heart of that child who had once laughed under twin suns. She longed for freedom, but more than that, she longed for hope. One evening, as she walked through the royal garden, she overheard two advisors speaking. "They say a human has stood against the machines," one whispered. "A human?" "Alone," the other replied with doubt. "Not alone, but he leads. He has brought together broken fleets and guided them to victory. They call him the human hero." Myra paused, hidden behind the trees. Her heart stirred with curiosity. A human? She had not seen many since her childhood on Ceres, but she remembered well the kindness of one boy who had once been her friend. She shook her head, reminding herself it could not be him. That boy was gone from her life, just a memory of the past. Still, she could not help but wonder about this human hero. Who was he? What gave him the strength to stand when whole empires faltered? Across the galaxy, the name of this hero grew. Travelers told stories in crowded markets, soldiers repeated his victories in their barracks, and even children whispered his name as if it were a charm against fear. The machines were powerful, cold, and endless, but wherever this human appeared, people said hope returned. No one agreed on the details. Some said he commanded fleets larger than any king. Others claimed he carried nothing but courage and clever plans. Some spoke of his strange ability to bring enemies together, to turn rivals into allies when danger came too close. But all agreed on one truth: without him, the galaxy might already have been lost. Princess Myra sat many nights at her window, looking up at the sky. She imagined this human, whoever he was. She imagined him standing on the bridge of a ship, stars shining around him, making choices that would decide the future of worlds. In her heart, she admired him, though she did not know his face. As weeks turned into months, the machine threat grew worse. Entire star systems sent calls for help. The machines did not speak, did not bargain, did not rest. They only consumed, breaking down whatever they touched and reshaping it into more of themselves. It was said their hunger had no end. The royal court of Vera held a meeting that stretched into the night. Advisors argued, generals shouted, and maps glowed with red marks showing lost colonies. At last, Myra's father, the king, spoke. The galaxy is falling into shadow. But there is one who has turned back the tide again and again. This human must be found. If he truly is what they say, we will need him. The hall grew silent at his words. Even the strongest leaders knew they could not face this alone. In the days that followed, messengers left for the gathering of worlds, where leaders from across the galaxy would meet. Princess Myra was chosen to attend, both as a voice of her people and as a symbol of unity. She prepared with care, though her thoughts often drifted back to that whisper she had overheard the human hero. She did not know why her heart felt so restless. Perhaps it was only the weight of the times. Or perhaps, deep inside, some old memory was trying to wake. Far away, on another world, the human in question prepared as well. His name had begun to spread beyond stories. Soon, he would be called to stand before rulers and prove that he was not only a hero of battles but also a leader who could guide the galaxy through its darkest trial. And though neither Myra nor he knew it yet, their paths were moving toward each other again, like stars drawn together in the same orbit. The great gathering of worlds was held on Lyros, a planet known for its wide crystal halls and shining towers that touched the clouds. Ships from every corner of the galaxy arrived, filling the skies with trails of light. Leaders, nobles, warriors, and scholars stepped onto Lyros, each carrying the worries of their people. Princess Myra stood among her royal guard, her long robe flowing as she walked through the grand hall. She had attended councils before, but never one as large or as heavy with silence. Everyone knew the reason they had gathered. The machine threat was growing stronger, and the galaxy needed a plan. The hall was filled with voices, but none spoke with true hope. Some leaders argued that each world should defend itself. Others believed surrender was wiser, to hide and survive. Myra listened quietly, her eyes scanning the crowd. She felt a strange emptiness, as if all the power in this hall meant little against the endless tide of machines. Then a sound rose above the noise. The announcer's voice echoed through the chamber, "Enter the one who is called the human hero, savior of fleets, protector of the stars." The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward the tall doors as they opened. A man stepped forward, his steps calm and steady. He did not wear golden robes or jeweled armor. His clothes were plain, simple compared to the splendor around him. Yet there was something in his presence that silenced the hall more than any crown could. His eyes carried the weight of battles fought and lives protected. His smile, faint but gentle, seemed to hold comfort in a room full of fear. Myra's breath caught in her throat. She knew that face. The shape of his smile, the light in his eyes, the way he carried himself, it was impossible to mistake. Lian. The boy from Ceres. The one who had once shown her how to buy fruit in the market, who had run with her through the tall grass, who had promised that friends remember. Her heart raced. She had not spoken his name in years, but now it came back as if no time had passed. Could it truly be him? The galaxy called him a hero. He stood now as the one who had saved worlds. Yet she remembered him as a boy with dusty shoes and laughter in his voice. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she clasped them together. She forced herself to stay composed, but inside, a storm of memories swirled. The council began, voices rising again as leaders asked the human for guidance. Lian listened, his face calm, his words simple but strong. He spoke not of surrender but of unity. "The machines grow because we are divided," he said. "But when we stand together, they fall back. I have seen it. I have led soldiers from rival worlds, and side by side they found strength. That is our path together." Many listened with doubt. Others nodded with hope. Myra listened with a racing heart. His voice was deeper now, but it carried the same warmth she remembered. He had grown, but the spirit of the boy she once knew remained within him. When the meeting ended, Leanne bowed respectfully and turned to leave. Myra felt her chance slipping away. She could not let him vanish into the sea of people. Without thinking, she followed. Through the halls of crystal, she moved quickly, her guards struggling to keep up. She saw him ahead, speaking kindly to a group of young soldiers. They looked at him with shining eyes, as if he were the very light of hope. Myra paused for a moment, watching. The way he bent slightly to meet their gaze, the way he laughed softly, it was the same as when he had been a boy on Ceres. Gathering her courage, Myra stepped forward. "Leanne," she whispered. He turned. For a moment, his eyes widened. Then a slow smile spread across his face, a smile of recognition, of memory. "Myra," he said quietly, as if her name was both a surprise and something long remembered. The years melted between them. The hall, the guards, the grand robes, all of it faded. For a moment, they were children again under the twin suns, laughing and running through the fields. "You remember," she said softly, unable to hide the emotion in her voice. "How could I forget?" he replied. His eyes held warmth, not just of the hero he had become, but of the friend he had always been. Silence stretched, but it was not empty. It was full of memories, of promises once made, of a bond that time and distance had not erased. Finally, Myra found her voice. "The galaxy calls you hero," she said, "but to me, you are the boy who once shared bread with me." Leanne chuckled softly. "And you are the girl who showed me how to see the stars as more than lights in the sky." For the first time in many months, Myra's heart felt light. The galaxy was still in danger, the machines still rising, but here, before her, was proof that even in the darkest times, bonds could last. She realized then that the hero who had saved the galaxy was not a stranger. He was her friend. And though much had changed, some things remained forever. The crystal halls of Lyro slowly emptied after the gathering of leaders. Outside, the sky glowed with ships leaving one by one, their lights streaking across the horizon. Inside, the sound of footsteps and distant voices faded, leaving the halls quiet and still. Princess Myra walked beside Leanne, her guards keeping a respectful distance. Neither of them spoke at first. There was so much to say, yet the words seemed caught between past and present. Leanne finally broke the silence. "You have changed," he said softly. His eyes studied her, not with the weight of a hero, but with the warmth of an old friend. Myra smiled faintly. "And you have changed even more. The boy I knew could barely climb a tree. Now they call him the savior of the galaxy." He chuckled, the sound gentle. "I still cannot climb a tree very well. But life, it forced me to climb other things." They stopped by a large window, looking out at the shining city below. The towers of Lyros reflected the starlight, and the sound of music drifted faintly from a plaza where people celebrated the gathering. For a moment, the weight of duty slipped away, and it was just them two friends remembering. "Do you remember Ceres?" Myra asked, her voice quiet. Leanne's gaze softened. "Every day. The markets, the fields, the games we played. I remember the flower you gave me before you left. I carried it with me for years, until the petals faded." Her breath caught. She had almost forgotten that small moment, but he had not. It was as if their childhood had lived inside him through all the battles and journeys. "You remembered," she whispered. "I promised I would," he replied simply. Myra turned to face him fully. "The galaxy knows you as a hero, but I know you as the boy who once showed me kindness when I was lost in a noisy market. That is the Leanne I see even now." He looked at her with quiet eyes, and for a moment, the burden of being the human hero seemed to fade from his shoulders. With Myra, he did not need titles. He could just be himself. But peace did not last forever. A messenger hurried toward them, bowing quickly. "Sir, Princess," he said breathlessly. "There has been an attack on the outer colonies. The machines moved faster than expected. The council demands your presence." Myra and Lien exchanged a look. The moment of memory was gone, replaced by the weight of reality. Lien nodded to the messenger. "We will come." As the messenger left, Myra turned to him. "You carry too much alone. The galaxy looks to you for every answer. But even heroes cannot stand forever without rest." He shook his head. "I cannot rest while the machines move. If I stop, worlds will fall." Her voice was firm. "Then let me stand beside you. My people trust me. I have ships, knowledge, and strength to give. Do not push me aside, Lien." "Not again." Lien studied her for a long moment. He saw not just the girl from Ceres, but the woman she had become, wise, brave, and determined. At last, he nodded. "Very well. But promise me one thing." "What is that?" she asked. "That you will not follow me because of who I am now. Follow me only if you still trust the friend you once knew." Myra's lips curved into a smile. "That is the only reason I follow." The bond between them deepened that night. They spoke quietly in the hours before dawn, sharing not just memories but truths. Lien told her of battles fought in the cold of space, of nights when he thought he would not see another sunrise. Myra told him of the loneliness of courts, where every smile carried weight and every word was measured. And through these stories, they realized something powerful: the strength that made Lien a hero was not his skill in battle, nor his command of ships. It was his heart, the same heart that once shared bread with a lonely girl on Ceres. And the strength that made Myra a leader was not her crown, but her courage to stand beside those she cared for. When the first light of dawn touched Lyros, Myra and Lien stood together, watching the sky turn gold. "The galaxy sees us as leaders," Lien said, "but I see us as friends who once promised to remember." "And we did," Myra whispered. "That promise kept us alive." Beyond the city, ships were preparing to fly once more. The machines had awakened in new places, and soon both Lien and Myra would have to step back into duty. But now, they carried something more than titles and responsibilities. They carried a bond, hidden yet unbroken, strong enough to face whatever darkness came next. And though the galaxy did not yet know, its greatest hope was not only in fleets and weapons. It was in the trust between a human hero and an alien princess, two friends whose bond had survived time and distance, and who now stood ready to face the storm together. The days that followed on Lyros were busy with planning. Fleets were moving, messages were sent across star systems, and every leader tried to prepare for the next wave of machine attacks. Yet in the quiet hours between meetings, Princess Myra and Lien found time to speak. They often walked in the gardens of Lyros, where tall crystal flowers glowed softly at night. The air was cool, carrying the scent of distant seas. It was a place far from the noise of councils, where words could be honest and light. One evening, Myra turned to him and said, "I want to hear about your journeys. Not just the battles, but the moments in between." Lien smiled faintly. "Most of the time, there was no peace. But there were small things. I once stayed on a world where trees grew so tall they touched the clouds. Their leaves made music when the wind blew. Another time, I met children who had never seen stars because their world was covered in storms. When I showed them the sky from my ship, they laughed as if they had been given a treasure." Myra listened closely, her eyes bright. She could almost see the worlds he described, and she realized that even in war, he had carried gentleness with him. "And what about you?" he asked softly. She thought for a moment. "I grew inside walls of duty. I learned languages, laws, and how to smile even when my heart was heavy. But my happiest memories were not inside palaces. They were with you, on Ceres. Sometimes, when the court grew cold, I remembered those days. That memory gave me warmth. Leanne looked at her quietly. So we both carried memories. They kept us strong. They sat in silence, letting the memory of their childhood rest between them like a flame that had never gone out. The next morning, Myra joined Leanne in the war council. For the first time, she saw how he worked among generals and captains. He did not shout or demand. Instead, he listened to each voice and drew threads of unity from their words. Even leaders who disagreed found themselves nodding when he spoke. Hope, Leanne said during one session, is not built from great weapons. It is built from trust. If your soldiers believe in one another, they will stand when the machines rise. Myra watched the effect his words had. The galaxy saw him as a hero because of his victories, but she understood something deeper. His strength was not only in plans but in his ability to remind people of what they were fighting for. Later, when the council ended, Myra joined him on the steps outside the hall. Below them, soldiers trained in the courtyards, their voices loud with determination. You carry hope with you, she said softly. Even when others feel only fear. He shook his head. I carry memories. The thought of protecting the lives I care for is what gives me strength. Without that, I would be nothing. Myra's chest warmed at his words. She realized that the galaxy did not truly know who Leanne was. They saw a symbol, but she saw the truth, a man who held on to simple things: friendship, kindness, and promises. That night, they shared another memory. Myra had asked the cooks of Lyros to prepare a dish she remembered from Ceres, a bread filled with sweet fruit. When it was served, Leanne laughed in surprise. I thought I would never taste this again, he said, breaking the bread in half. You once shared it with me when I was afraid to try, Myra said with a smile. And you laughed when I ate too much, he added. They both laughed, and for a moment, the galaxy outside seemed far away. But the peace did not last long. A messenger soon arrived with grim news. The machines have appeared near the Nabra line. 3 colonies are in danger. They grow faster than our fleets can reach them. The joy of the evening faded, but Myra saw how Leanne straightened, calm but determined. Then we must move faster, he said. As plans were made, Myra placed a hand on his arm. You will not face this alone. My ships are ready. Let us fight together, not as hero and princess, but as friends. Leanne met her gaze and nodded slowly. Together, then. The bond between them was no longer just memory. It was a new strength, a partnership that reached beyond childhood promises. Myra felt it deep in her heart, they were stronger side by side. As the stars stretched above Lyros, fleets prepared to fly. The galaxy still trembled before the machines, but now Myra carried hope not only because of Leanne's heroics, but because their friendship, born long ago under twin suns, had grown into something greater. The princess and the human hero would face the storm together. The Nabra line was a stretch of space known for its trading stations and farming colonies. Families lived there in peace, raising children under quiet stars. But now, the peace was broken. Strange signals filled the air, and machine ships spread across the region like a dark tide. When news reached Lyros, the War Council grew restless. Many leaders argued for delay, saying their fleets were not ready. Others feared that sending ships would only lead to greater losses. But Leanne stood at the center of the hall, his voice steady. If we wait, the colonies will fall. If we move together, we have a chance. Princess Myra spoke beside him, her words calm but firm. My people's fleet will join his. We will not let the machines devour more lives. Her voice carried strength, and for the first time, hesitation in the council weakened. Slowly, more leaders agreed to send ships. Within days, Fleets from many worlds gathered at Lyros, their engines burning bright against the dark sky. Lien and Myra stood together on the command deck of a great ship as it rose into space. Myra looked at the gathering of vessels through the wide glass. So many worlds, moving side by side. Perhaps this is what unity looks like. Lien nodded. It is not easy to bring so many together. But the machines do not leave us a choice. We either stand together, or we fall apart. The journey to the Nibra was long. On the way, Myra noticed how the crews looked at Lien with respect. To them, he was more than a commander, he was hope itself. But in private moments, when the two of them spoke, Myra saw the truth. You still carry the same heart, she said one evening as they walked through the ship's quiet corridors. You give courage to others, but you still doubt yourself. Lien gave a small smile. I do. Every choice weighs heavy. Every life lost feels like my own failure. But when I remember Ceres, when I remember you, it reminds me why I keep fighting. Her chest warmed at his words. She realized then that his strength did not come from believing he was perfect. It came from carrying fear and still moving forward. At last, the fleet arrived at the Nibra. What they saw made even the bravest fall silent. The machine swarm stretched across space like a storm of black wings. Ships of metal, cold and endless, moved as one, devouring everything in their path. The colonies ahead glowed faintly, their lights flickering as the machines drew closer. Lien stood before the gathered captains. His voice was calm, though the danger was clear. We cannot outnumber them. But we can outthink them. The machines are strong, but they do not feel. They cannot trust, they cannot imagine. That is where we hold the advantage. We will strike not as scattered fleets, but as one. The captains nodded, and the plan was set. The battle began with silence, then erupted in fire. Stars lit up as fleets clashed. Machine ships moved with perfect order, but the Allied fleets moved with something greater will. Human, alien, soldier, and civilian all fought together, guided by Lien's voice. Myra stood beside him, giving her own commands, her presence steady and clear. Her fleet moved in harmony with his, covering weak points, protecting the smaller ships. Together, their voices filled the comms, bringing courage to all. But the machines were endless. For every wave destroyed, another appeared. Soon, the Allied fleets began to falter. Alarms rang, and lights dimmed across the command deck. Myra's heart raced. Lien, if this continues, she began. He cut her off, his eyes sharp. There is one chance. The swarm has a core, a signal center that guides them. If we strike it, they will lose their order. It is deep inside, Myra said. No fleet can reach it. Not a fleet, he replied. Just one ship. Silence followed his words. Myra's chest tightened. She understood. He meant to go himself. No, she said firmly. You cannot carry this alone. Not anymore. If you go, I go with you. Lien looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the same boy who once stood beside her under twin suns. At last, he nodded. Then we go together. With a small strike team, they broke through the chaos, weaving between machine ships that moved like a storm. Their vessel shook, sparks flew, and the void outside burned with light. Yet through it all, they pressed forward. At last, they reached the core. It was a great black sphere, pulsing with energy, sending commands to the swarm. It was larger than a city, and its surface shifted like liquid metal. This is it, Lien said quietly. Myra placed her hand on the console. Then let us end this. As their ship prepared the strike, Myra looked at Lien. In that moment, she felt no fear. They were not hero and princess. They were two friends, bound by trust, facing the storm side by side. The final challenge had begun. The black core pulsed before them, sending waves of energy across space. The machines, vast and endless, moved with perfect coordination. But Lien and Myra knew their strength was not in numbers, but in courage, trust, and cleverness. "Are you ready?" Lien asked, his hand brushing against the control panel. Myra nodded, her eyes steady. "We are ready." Together, the ship surged forward, weaving through the swarm. Sparks flew as metal scraped metal, and alarms blared, but they pressed on. Each maneuver was precise, guided by trust between them and the crews they had led. Finally, they reached the heart of the core. Its black surface shimmered, sending pulses that controlled the countless machines outside. Lien studied the patterns, his mind working faster than ever. "We cannot destroy it the usual way. It adapts too quickly. But we can change its commands, make it see allies instead of enemies." Myra's eyes lit up. "Then do it. I will help. Together, we can reprogram it." They worked side by side, fingers flying over controls, inputting codes and commands. The black core shuddered, resisting their attempts. Sparks shot across the control room, warning of overloads. But they did not give up. "Almost there," Lien whispered, his voice steady. "Just a little more." Outside, the machines hesitated. Their movements became slower, less coordinated. Light flickered across the surface of the swarm. The pulse of the core wavered. Myra smiled faintly. "It is working. The swarm is listening." With one final command, the core changed. Signals went out across space, telling the machines that they were no longer enemies, that they should stop attacking. Slowly, the swarm stopped its advance. Ships that had been falling began to hold position, some even turning away from the colonies they had targeted. The fleets watching from afar gasped as chaos turned to order. The galaxy was still tense, but the danger was ending. Lien leaned back, exhausted but smiling. Myra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. "No," he replied. "We did it. Together." They looked out the windows of their ship at the colonies below. Fires were dying out, and lights began to shine again. Families who had feared for their lives would see the stars tonight, free from the shadow of machines. When they returned to Lyros, leaders and soldiers alike gathered to honor them. But Myra did not speak of medals or titles. She only looked at Lien, remembering the boy who once ran with her through the fields of Ceres. "The hero who saved the galaxy," she said quietly, "is not just a leader of fleets. He is the friend who remembers." Lien laughed softly. "And you are the princess who never forgot that friendship." The halls of Lyros rang with celebration, but for Lien and Myra, the true victory was simple. It was trust. It was hope. It was the bond they had carried across years and worlds, stronger than any fleet or weapon. In the following days, peace returned to the galaxy. Colonies rebuilt, trade routes reopened, and families reunited. The machine threat had been neutralized, not through destruction, but through understanding. And though many would speak of Lien as a hero, he knew that it was not the title that mattered. Myra stood beside him as the suns of Lyros set, painting the sky with gold and violet. "Do you remember our promise?" she asked. Lien smiled, the memory clear in his mind. "Yes. Friends remember." "And we have," she said softly. "Even through stars, battles, and time." They stood together, looking at the galaxy they had saved. Ships flew across the horizon, stars twinkled like sparks of hope, and the future seemed wide and open. The galaxy had called Lien a hero. But to Myra, he would always be the boy who had shared bread with her on Ceres, who had laughed beside her, and who had reminded her that even in darkness, friendship and courage could shine brighter than any star. And in that light, they walked forward, side by side, ready to face whatever new adventures the galaxy would bring. The human hero had saved the galaxy. But the true story was not just about battles or victories, it was about heart, trust, and the bonds that made humans capable of greatness. And somewhere, in the quiet of the night, the memory of a boy and a girl under twin suns lived on, stronger than any shadow, shining in the hearts of those who believed in hope.